Welcome back to another FPL video. This will be the team selection for Blank Gameweek 18. I'll be discussing how I did in Gameweek 17. Then looking ahead to my transfer plans, I could take a -4 hit this week, if not just the one free transfer. There's always the possibility of rolling, but I'm actually quite confident that using a transfer won't impact my ability to buy back Erling Haaland in Gameweek 19 should he be available upon his return from the Club World Cup. Manchester City versus Brentford is obviously a blank in Gameweek 18. As a result, there are a lot of fires to put out for some of you. I've got no Man City or Brentford players currently, but that could of course change in the coming weeks. And now there's so much to discuss with injury doubts, the midweek Carabao Cup games which haven't taken place at the time of this recording, and much more, such as the best captaincy options. So be sure to tune in for the rest of the video, and there could also be a best wildcard team video if this one gets to over 200 likes. We're also 60 subscribers away from 22,000 overall, and that is our main objective by the end of the year. But without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. I went from having one of the worst defensive line performances ever in Gameweek 16 to a very solid display. Dubravka got 7 points in Gameweek 17 with a clean sheet and some save points there against Fulham in a 3-0 win for Newcastle United. So overall, very happy with Dubravka. Finally, he has returned. He was so close the first time I brought him in against Everton, and in the end of that game, Trippier was making some big mistakes which cost them. But overall, I think Dubravka could be a decent option at that price point. And of course, if you look at the alternatives, Turner isn't looking good at all, and Nottingham Forest are winless in 6. You've also got Areola, who's been displaced by Fabianski, and it could be the case yet again in Gameweek 18. And then you look at the others, such as Kelleher. He only had 2 or 3 game weeks there in Alisson's stead, and now the Brazilian is back and he's going to start every single game until the end of the season. So Dubravka is the best of a relatively bad bunch in terms of budget goalkeepers, and overall Leno looks like the best option at the moment. It was quite a differential to go for a double up in the Newcastle defence in Gameweek 17, and it paid dividends with that clean sheet. Lascelles got no bonus points or anything special, but 6 points is still very steady. I'm happy with it, and in home matches, I'd be very happy to double up on the Newcastle defence. But away from home, I'd even be tempted to bench all of the options because Newcastle are terrible on their travel, 16th in the league table, but at St James's Park, they've only lost once all season, and they've only conceded 4 goals in the process, 2 of them being to Darwin Nunez. My second defender was Tsimikas, who got a clean sheet and a bonus point against Manchester United in a 0-0 draw. If Liverpool had dispatched United, then it would have been a different story, unless Tsimikas got an assist or a goal. But in the end, I'm quite happy with that return. And Tsimikas is a very good option in home games, but he's not the most nailed on. And he might start against Arsenal, but then in the following game week against Burnley away, that's where he could be benched. So Tsimikas could be a bit of an awkward FPL option. He's still a good choice, and I would keep him if you've got good defensive depth. But overall, you definitely would want to upgrade to Trent Alexander-Arnold if you have the funds, and there are better defenders elsewhere because they're more nailed on and they're not going to get these one-pointers off the bench. My final defender was Pedro Porro, one of my new signings for a -4 hit. He got 8 points on the Friday night, the first game of the game week, a clean sheet and 2 bonus points against Nottingham Forest. He created chances as always, and he looks like a very good option in the weeks to come, even beyond that, potentially up until February or March. So I think Spurs have some good options to boast. Kulusevski and Richarlison are on the radar. Heung-min Son is obviously one of the best FPL choices, period, up until Gameweek 21 when he goes off to the Asian Cup. And in the defence, I think Pedro Porro is by far the best Spurs defender. The midfield was a bit up and down. Gordon got an assist and a clean sheet point, 6 overall. He hasn't blanked in 9 home games in the Premier League this season, but away from home, Gordon is fairly inconsistent, just like Newcastle United in general. But whenever he's playing at St James's Park, I would not bench him, even if he's playing a Liverpool, a Man City or Arsenal. It doesn't really matter. He has scored in many big games, and he got that vital assist to kill off the game against Fulham. Now, next up is Jarrod Bowen. I was a bit disappointed because Kudus and Paqueta were getting all the points, but Bowen did seal the game for West Ham with the 3rd goal, and he got 8 points overall. And I still think he's better than Kudus and Lucas Paqueta long term, and a lot of people might be thinking about going to Kudus, but he's got 3 relatively tough games coming up, and then he heads off to the African Cup of Nations in Gameweek 21, and I think Bowen could be one of the best Son or Salah replacements alongside Bukayo Saka. So for me, Jarrod Bowen is definitely a long-term hold. hold, and if you don't have him already, I'd still be looking to buy him in now or in Game Week 21 when the fixtures ease off, and you also might need a midfielder. You might be in the market to replace Son or Salah, as I mentioned earlier, and Jeroboam would be a great choice there. Now, next up is Mohamed Salah, who blanked to the surprise of many. He was the most popular captaincy option, period, especially in the top 100k. I think over 70% of managers did put the armband on him. Only a clean sheet point for him and 2 appearance points. No bookings, that's good, but no goals or assists against Manchester United, and goalless there. It was a pretty disappointing game, I think, from an offensive perspective, but Man United defended well and they had some big chances to maybe nick a win at the very end. Now, my 4th midfielder was the star of the show, Cole Palmer, with 14 points, a goal, assist and free bonus. He was quite disappointing in the first half, and Chelsea had an XG of 0.09 in the first 45 minutes, but they picked up in the second half, and Cole Palmer was instrumental in everything Chelsea did. He also created a big chance for Broja, who missed pretty much an open goal, you could say, but Cole Palmer is definitely the best budget midfielder at this moment in time, and the closest to him is Anthony Gordon. Now, the 5th midfielder is another one who blanked, and it was Salah and Saka who blanked out of these 5, and usually they're the ones who are returning whilst the others might be up and down and very inconsistent. I believe this is the first time that Salah or Saka blanked at home this season, so it does go to show that you can't deliver in every single game no matter how good you are, but these are 2 of the most consistent options in FPL, and Saka has blanked in 2 consecutive games, and it's Liverpool away next, so it could be free, but long term Saka is an easy hold. I keep seeing people saying, oh, I'm going to sell him, but yeah, you can go to Son for the next 3, that's absolutely fine, but then who do you go back to when Son goes off to the Asian Cup? I think Saka is the easy answer, so for me, he's a very easy hold and one of the best FPL assets in the game. The second transfer I made in Game Week 17 was Ollie Watkins. So Pedro Porro and Watkins got me 17 points with a -4 hit taken into account. I gained 13 points from these transfers because Anderson got 0, 2 goals conceded and a yellow. Erling Haaland missed out, and overall he's also going to blank in Game Week 18, and the one that would have come in for me was Saliba. So maybe if you put that into perspective, and Saliba got 7 points, I did technically gain 6 points, but we don't really need to talk about technicalities there. Ollie Watkins with a late goal and some bonus points against his former club to win it for Aston Villa at the dying end, and Ollie Watkins has been so consistent. He's scoring or assisting virtually in every single match. He's got Sheffield United next, and I think he's essential in Blank Gameweek 18, and even in the long term, I think he's the best forward in FPL, with the exception of Erling Haaland once he returns from injury and the Club World Cup. But Darwin Núñez is certainly not the best forward or the second best. He is far from it. That is a 1-pointer after a booking against Manchester United, and he's been very disappointing to say the least. He can still do well in the fixtures coming up, even the difficult ones like Arsenal and Newcastle United, but he's just so frustrating, inconsistent, constantly under-delivers on his XG, the big chances, which is 18 this season, and overall he's going to be very frustrating. There's going to be benchings as well, especially with the quick turnaround. So there are a lot of factors as to why Darwin Núñez is more of a sell than a hold at this moment in time, and I think Solanke is a better FPL striker and forward at this moment in time. So that was my starting 11. Let's now talk about my captaincy and my overall rank before moving on to the Game Week 18 team selection. It was a very solid week for me. I got 75 points, and with the -4 hit taken into account, that's 71 overall, and I'm close to 1,000 points across the season. My overall rank went from around 962,000 in the world to 518,000. Once substitutions are made and Game Week 17 is officially closed, then I'll probably go down to 580 or 600,000, but that's still a nice green arrow, some good progress, and I'm now back on track after some red arrows in the last couple of game weeks. I captained Salah, my vice was Saka, and really I should have looked at Palmer a little bit more. I did feel that Chelsea would struggle, and I was right in the first half, but Chelsea got their act together and won quite comprehensively in the end. So Cole Palmer is someone I should have looked at a little bit more, at least given the vice captaincy, and in the future you sometimes have to look beyond the most obvious captaincy options every single week and the most popular choices, because many times this season the most popular choice hasn't been the best by any stretch of the imagination, and there have been a lot of blanks for the likes of Haaland, Salah, and many great FPL assets. So we have to be a bit more open-minded in our thinking with the captaincy, and that certainly applies to me because I've been a bit too rigid and gone for the easy and popular choice, and that isn't always the best way to go about it. Let's now head over to the Game Week 18 team selection portion of this video, scenario. I'm considering a -4 hit. It's not locked in. I'll be waiting for more injury updates, which can also change my transfer plans in the next couple of days. And be sure to tune in for the deadline stream on the Thursday. Despite the fact that I'm not that confident in terms of a clean sheet for Newcastle United, I'd still go for Dubravka because my alternative is Areola. I'm not going to go for him at this moment in time. Facing Manchester United at home, and Areola might be benched. If we see Areola start in the Carabao Cup midweek against Liverpool, I think that's a really good sign in terms of him losing a spot as the league goalkeeper, and now the roles have reversed and Fabianski becomes the main choice whilst Areola plays in the cup competition. So let's keep an eye out for those lineups. I think they will give us some insight into what's going to happen in the future. But Dubravka away to Luton Town, it's not ideal. I think Newcastle could struggle. They might still get the victory, of course. I would anticipate a fairly low scoring game, and that could favour me if I decide to go for the double up in the Newcastle defence. So Dubravka is in goal, but I'm not that confident based on their away record. At the moment, I am going for that defensive double up for Newcastle, and it could be one of the last times we see Lascelles starting a Premier League game in a very long while. Fabian Schär's injury doesn't seem to be too serious, and you also have Sven Botman, who came off the bench against Fulham, and he could be a very big boost there for Newcastle United. So Lascelles, his days might be numbered. He is still a good FPL option for the time being, but how long that's going to last, I'm not so sure. The second defender could be Pau Torres. I am looking at bringing an Aston Villa defender in, but if Pau Torres is out, I could also go for Konsa or Diego Carlos. Alex Moreno and Luca Dean would be the ones with the highest ceiling, the most attacking potential, but I also think they're going to rotate quite often, and Luca Dean has started virtually every single Premier League game this season until Game Week 17 because of his suspension, whilst Alex Moreno came in, did a very good job, got 10 points overall, 2 bonus points, and scored the opening goal to equalise against Brentford. But if Pau Torres is available, I think he's by far the best Aston Villa defender at this moment in time, and it would be for Matty Cash, who would be offloaded. I don't think Matty Cash will start in Blank Gameweek 18. If I see some Aston Villa in the nose and those with some very reliable predicted lineups indicating that Cash will start, then maybe I'll reconsider and save the -4 hit for the time being. And ultimately, Pau Torres, his ceiling won't be that high, and you're relying on clean sheets, but he does have the occasional goal in him. He's a big threat from set pieces, and he also has some decent underlying numbers, including 4 big chances for the season. My final defender is Pedro Porro, one of the best defenders in terms of underlying metrics and attacking potential. I'd only rank Trent or Trippier above him in terms of assist threat, and you just see him in every single game. He's one of the most dangerous players for Tottenham Hotspur, but Everton is going to be a very tough game there. Since the Man United loss 3-0 at Goodison Park after the points deduction there for Everton, they haven't conceded a single goal, and they've won every single Premier League game. So I think Spurs might be in for a tough ride. I don't expect them to keep a clean sheet, and I have some decent alternatives on the bench, but that's in the Liverpool versus Arsenal game, where I don't expect either team to keep a clean sheet. If I end up starting Lascelles, it will be a triple up in Newcastle in my starting 11 for yet another occasion. And I think it's a great thing at St James's Park, but away from home, I'd be far from confident, even if it's against Luton Town, which looks great on paper, but they've given the best teams in the league a very tough game, narrowly losing to Arsenal and Manchester City. It took a last-minute winner from Declan Rice to win it for the Gunners. Liverpool had to score a 96th minute equaliser to get a draw. Tottenham Hotspur went down to 10 men and grinded out a 1-0 win. So Newcastle won't have it easy, in my opinion, but Gordon is a very good choice. He's someone I wouldn't want to bench anyway, even away from home, but I think it's mainly a case at St James's Park where Gordon has to start if you have him, but away from home you can make a case for dropping him to your bench. Next up is Jarrod Bowen at home to Manchester United. The algorithms do favour him this week. I think he's got 6 projected points in fpl.team, which is one of the highest of any midfielder in the game, and I'm very happy with Jarrod Bowen's consistency. He hasn't gotten many assists, and the bonus points has been a bit lacking, especially compared to Kudus in recent weeks, but Jarrod Bowen is consistently scoring. He's always a threat. He can play down the middle or on the right-hand side. In either scenario, he's going to deliver and get some good FPL points in the process. My third midfielder is Mohamed Salah in that top of the table clash between Arsenal and Liverpool at Anfield, and Salah has a great record against the top 6. He scored against Arsenal last season at Anfield but also missed a penalty, but Salah's always a threat. He's going to be in my team until he goes off to the African Cup of Nations in Game Week 21. I would not sell him beforehand because he can go off in any single game. My fourth midfielder is Cole Palmer away to Wolves, and despite Chelsea looking promising in certain games, games, they still don't fill me with confidence. They're not consistent, and Cole Palmer is by far the best attacker they have at this moment in time. Maybe the introduction of Nkuku to the starting 11 would boost things, but it might take some time for that to be the case. He was on the bench against Sheffield United, but I'm not so sure when he's going to return, but that could also bolster Palmer's assist threat even further from open play. And the final midfielder is Saka away to Liverpool. I think his ceiling is very low in this game, but he has done very well against Liverpool in the past, mainly in the Community Shield final and also in home matches. But overall, I'm looking at this midfield and it's not looking particularly great. A lot of away games there and some tough fixtures, even for Salah. And overall, I wouldn't really expect such a high ceiling. For me, Heung-min Son is the best midfielder on paper this week, facing Everton at home. I don't have him. I could even take a hit or make a transfer in that position. It could be Saka or Bowen or even someone else like Gordon, but I don't think it's worth it with Son heading off to the Asian Cup in Game Week 21, and I've also got other positions to strengthen. For me, at least on paper, Ollie Watkins is the number one pick in Game Week 18, facing Sheffield United at home, so he makes for a terrific captaincy choice. Aston Villa have the best home record. They barely concede. They score so many goals. I think they average 3 goals per game at Villa Park, and Sheffield United have been extremely poor across the whole season. They have improved a little bit in recent weeks with Chris Wilder losing 2-0 to Chelsea and Liverpool, and also beating Brentford. So they're a bit tougher and more resilient, but overall there's a severe lack of quality, and Aston Villa should score 2 or 3 past them and get the win quite easily. My final striker could be Solanke. I am considering a -4 hit to sell either Darwin or Archer to Solanke. Now, if I were to sell Archer and keep Darwin, it would be very close in terms of buying Haaland back, and I'd have to make transfers early to ensure that I can pull off all of these transfers. And it all depends really, because with Erling Haaland, there is no guarantee that he'll be available for Game Week 19. I believe he will be, but we don't know enough about the injury situation right now, and he hasn't trained so far with Manchester City at the Club World Cup, so that could also be a bit of a concern. They are playing the semi-final today on the Tuesday of the Club World Cup, and maybe let's see if he can be available or at least in the squad or the final there, should they reach it. But overall, Solanke and Watkins are the 2 best forwards in FPL at the moment until Erling Haaland comes back. And with Darwin Núñez, I'd be quite happy to sell him, even if he can do something against Arsenal. I would not rule that out at all. But in the long term, I want to avoid that headache of Darwin missing multiple chances, underperforming his XG and many other metrics. And on top of that, I don't think Darwin Núñez is nailed. I mean, far from it. He never has been. But in this period coming up, facing Arsenal, Burnley and Newcastle in a short stretch of time, I don't think he's going to start every single one of those games. And it might be that Burnley game, which is the most favourable fixture, he might be benched in that one and he starts against Arsenal. And that's far from ideal. So for those reasons described, I am looking to sell Darwin to Solanke. It could even be Archer to Solanke for the time being. But overall, it makes no difference. Darwin will drop to the bench at the very least. And I don't want him anywhere near my starting 11. With these transfers, my bench would be Areola, Tsimikas, Saliba and Archer. If I were to keep Darwin and sell Archer instead, my bench would almost be too strong and I would have some benching headaches in the future, especially if I buy Erling Haaland back in Game Week 19 for Darwin Núñez, so that would also be a tricky conundrum. But that is how my team is set up right now, and Pau Torres could be my transfer in. I'm also considering Konsa or Diego Carlos to cover the Aston Villa defence, and I'm also keeping my eye on Mikalenko and Tarkowski for Everton, who have been very impressive in recent weeks, and they offer tremendous value, around 4.5 million to 4.6. Now, in terms of the captaincy, I'm going to keep it very simple. Ollie Watkins has the best fixture. He's one of the best players this season. He's so consistent, great underlying numbers, and Sheffield United have still not convinced me, even in recent weeks. So I think he ticks every single box. Ollie Watkins as the captain, and Salah would be my vice. If I had Heung-min Son, I think Son would be my vice-captain and Salah would drop down to the 3rd best captaincy option this week. But you can't underestimate Salah in a big game, even if it's against City or Arsenal or the lowest team in the league. It doesn't matter. Salah can deliver against absolutely anybody and he's on penalties. But Ollie Watkins takes it for me and I think I'll be sticking with him. And instead, the big conundrums will be, do I buy Solanke in the end? Do I buy Pau Torres? Do I take the -4 hit? Or do I end up rolling or just making one free transfer? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. If I don't make a defender transfer, it would likely be Matty Cash starting. But as I said earlier in this video, I'm not so sure if the Polish wingback will start in Blank Gameweek 18. Let's now head over to different sites like Drafthound and fpl.team to discuss my team even further. According to Drafthound, Ollie Watkins is top for chance of scoring with 58%, Son is second, and Salah is joint third. So it kind of backs up my captaincy rankings for Blank Gameweek 18. Let me know if you disagree down in the comment section below. You also have chance of assisting in Drafthound, and Trippier is top. Watkins is second. That also boosts his appeal quite significantly, and Salah is in the top 5 as usual. You also have chance of a brace. Watkins is obviously going to top that, and that's quite high actually. For chance of a brace, it's at 23%, and also chance of a hat-trick is at 8%. So let's wait and see. That would be tremendous if Watkins could do something like that, and I think the Watkins agenda would just completely drop on this channel. And in terms of fixture analysis, Man City are top over the next 4 despite blanking in Gameweek 18. Spurs, Arsenal, Man United and Aston Villa are in the top 5. Chelsea and Liverpool are also quite high up, but this is for a chance of scoring over 2 goals. So I think the algorithm is favouring Man City to score plenty of goals against Everton, Sheffield United, etc., and that will compensate for the blank Gameweek in 18 because of their Club World Cup commitments. And in terms of player comparison, there are many tools here like Son versus Saka, and Son is definitely favoured this week, and I think that makes complete sense, and even over the next 3. But long term, Son will be off to the Asian Cup, and I think Saka will be one of the very best replacements for the South Korean. And in terms of predicted lineups, they're all there for every single team, so be sure to check out Drafthound using the link in the description below, and you can check out the lineups, the predicted points and much more. You can also optimize your team. They'll recommend you transfers, and throughout the week they've been saying cash to Pau Torres is the best move, and now they've updated it, and it all depends on the injury updates, but Drafthound is on top of everything, so be sure to check it out. And a huge shout out goes to those that signed up already using my link, all the channel members, patrons, and those that send in super chats in the live streams, the super thanks on the videos as well. Let's now head over to fpl.team, a free resource where I'll visualize my team in Gameweek 19 with the potential arrival and return of Erling Haaland. This is what I mean in terms of pure benching headaches. I would have the Brathwaite in goal and Aurelio would be on the bench. That's very simple anyway based on the fixtures. But my back 3 would be Tsimikas, Saliba, Lascelles, a midfield 4 of Saka, Gordon, Palmer, Salah, and then potentially a front 3 of Haaland, Watkins and Solanke, and I'd have 0.1 million in the bank based on these moves, and that's why it's a bit risky to not have a Cameron Archer or that budget enabler to facilitate the funds very easily to buy Erling Haaland back, and that all depends on if he's available, of course, in Gameweek 19. My bench will be Areola, Bowen, Pedro Porro and Pau Torres, but that is insane squad depth, and in the future weeks I'm going to have bench points eventually, and a lot of bench boost opportunities could arise before a double game week even takes place. So that's going to be the conundrum if I bring Erling Haaland back in Gameweek 19 or 20, and also if I decide to bolster my entire front line and have no budget options whatsoever, and all 15 players, or maybe 14 with the exception of Areola, would have a strong case of starting in any given game week. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this video to the 200 likes. Let's keep on pushing towards 22,000 subscribers and beyond. We are 60 away from that milestone. Let's try to reach it by the end of the year. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, the FPL League, and Drafthound, which I showed you just a few minutes ago. I wish you all the best of luck for Blank Gameweek 18 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.